In 1820, a whaling ship set sail from Nantucket. But what began as a routine hunt turned into one of the most terrifying survival stories in history. A story of hunger, madness, and the will to live. November 1819. The whaling ship Essex leaves Nantucket Harbor with 21 men. On board, their goal hunt whales across the Pacific and return with oil that would make them rich. The sea was calm, the men filled with ambition. They sang as the sails caught, the wind unaware that this journey would soon test their very humanity. For weeks, the Essex hunted, successfully. Whales fell, oil was stored, and spirits remained high, but deep in the Pacific, something unimaginable awaited. By the fall of 1820, the Essex had sailed thousands of miles into the Pacific. Supplies were running low, but the men pushed further, desperate for bigger catches. One morning, the crew spotted a massive sperm whale larger than any they had ever seen. It circled their ship, curious, almost as if it were studying them. At first, the men laughed and pointed, but the whale did not swim away. Instead, it turned toward the Essex, preparing for something no one expected. With terrifying speed, the whale charged straight at the Essex. Its massive head slammed into the hull, shaking the ship like an earthquake. The crew screamed in panic as water began rushing inside. Buckets were thrown. Men scrambled, but the damage was severe. Then, in a chilling moment, the whale struck again. This time, the ship cracked with a sound like thunder. The Essex was doomed. The crew realized the Essex was sinking. Their home, their lifeline in the endless ocean, was being swallowed by the sea. Men scrambled to the whaleboats, their only hope now. Supplies, water, food, and navigation tools were thrown in desperation. As the Essex disappeared beneath the waves, silence fell. The crew, trembling in tiny boats, knew their real fight for survival had just begun. The men floated in the vast Pacific, their tiny boats dwarfed by the endless horizon. Fear and uncertainty gnawed at their spirits. The men floated in the vast Pacific, their tiny boats dwarfed by the endless horizon. Fear and uncertainty gnawed at their spirits. Each man stared at the horizon, praying for land, for rescue, for anything but the silence of the sea. Days passed, and the voices of hunger grew louder than the sea. The bread was no longer enough, and the drops of water gave them only the illusion of survival. The men sat in heavy silence, each avoiding the eyes of the others. They knew something dreadful was approaching, a decision that could shatter their humanity. And in a cruel moment, they made the decision. If one of them died, his body would become the fuel for the survival of the others. The boat had turned into a stage of unforgettable human tragedy. As the days passed, the men grew weaker and weaker. The burning sun scorched their skin, and the salt from the sea tore at their lips. Every sip of water was more precious than gold, and every crumb of bread carried a struggle between life and death. Yet there was a strange silence among them, a silence that knew what was coming would be harsher than hunger and thirst. Bones began to jut beneath their skin, their faces turning into hollow masks of pain and suffering. Each passing day stripped away what little humanity they had left. The sun blazed overhead. The ocean stretched endlessly, and the men drifted between life and death. Their voices grew so faint that even a whisper felt heavier than speech. Deep inside, they knew the worst was yet to come, and that the bitter choice was drawing ever closer. Days blurred into nights, and the men grew weaker. Hunger hollowed their faces, and thirst cracked their lips. Hope was fading with every passing hour. One by one, their strength gave out. Each man feared not only death, but what survival might force them to do. The ocean gave no mercy. Then with trembling voices they faced the truth. To live, one must die. A decision carved in desperation, forever staining their souls. The sea was endless, but their world had shrunk to the size of a fragile boat. Every breath, every glance carried the weight of survival. They chose by drawing lots. Fate, not will, would decide who lived and who died. Silence fell as the chosen man lowered his head. A shot rang out, echoing across the empty horizon. The men looked away, but they knew their humanity had been sacrificed to the ocean. Days blurred into nights. Hunger gnawed at their bones, and thirst burned like fire in their throats. The sacrifice gave them strength for a time, but guilt lingered heavier than the storm clouds above. Each man carried the same question in His heart was survival worth the price of a soul. At last, a sail appeared on the horizon. Salvation after weeks of torment drifted toward them. They were rescued, their bodies frail but alive. Yet no rescue could free them from the memories. The ocean had spared their lives, but their souls would forever carry the weight of what they had done.